Bramborough back with some Grand Tactician Civil War Union Campaign. So, have advanced time a little bit since the last episode. We're now right at the end of August. It's August 30th. And not much, I've advanced time some, but not much has happened as far as armies maneuvering on the map. We still have our same situation where we've got the two armies in Northern Virginia, one somewhat near Washington and the other at Winchester in the Shenandoah Valley. They've been building forts for a while, and they are still doing that. One army kind of in the Appalachian area under McClellan. It is still at Marietta, Ohio, has built his supply depot, and so is recovering the supply situation that he had gotten himself into. So preparing to move on Charleston, Virginia at some point. And the Army of the Missouri is still at St. Louis, still working on these forts here. Initially, was building two forts. I don't think he's building this one anymore. And the reason for that is his readiness has dropped. For reasons I'll talk about in just a moment. And I believe that the command and combat radii, expand and shrink with readiness level. So he was at least yellow, maybe green readiness when he got to St. Louis, but his readiness has decreased because he's got more incoming troops. And so because he now has new men under his command, some of whom have not arrived yet, that lowers readiness because there's additional reorganization and administration, and not all the troops are actually here. So the reason for his loss of readiness is actually a good reason. And he'll come back up, but meanwhile, his radius shrank just a little bit, and I think this fort, it's kind of showing half in, half out, but I would assume that the specific point that needs to be covered is like right in the middle of the visible icon, and so he's really only building one fort right now, and I'm going to have to move him a little bit when this one gets completed, or by then his readiness should be back up and he'll start working on this fort again. So he's got troops coming in because we did complete the 24-month enlistment policy that we were working on earlier. And we are now working on Diplomacy 1 in order to get a quick injection of infantry small arms, Enfield and Lorenz rifles. The first priority was to get a decent contract length so we could recruit some units, and now the priority is quickly getting some rifles with which to arm those units. And then along with each militia act, it's not just about the contract length, it's also, it increases your volunteer manpower pool as well, because it increases the quota for each state to provide troops for the army. So between the contract lengths and the increased manpower pool, have recruited quite a few new units. Even now, we're coming up, and even with what I've recruited, we still have 43,000 in the manpower pool, so I could recruit some more. I never want to drive this to zero. I always like to maintain something like 25 to 30,000 as a minimum, because all of the replacements for attrition losses, desertion, sickness, combat casualties, that all comes out of the manpower pool too. The existing units are an ongoing drain, if you will, on their respective states' manpower pools. So, I always try to maintain a pretty healthy reserve, not drive the volunteer available down to zero. That said, I think we've got enough there. Let's see. The core is about 25,000, 27,000 troops. I think that drive the volunteer available pool too low to go for another core. But and no, by the way, just let's just for a round number, let's say okay, it takes 30,000 troops to make whatever core we're trying to build. If we have 30,000 volunteers in the pool, that doesn't mean we can recruit that core, because it's broken down by state. And if you need a 3,000 man infantry brigade, that's all got to come from one state. If there aren't 3,000 troops or 3,000 recruits available in that state's own pool, well, you can't recruit the brigade. So among, whatever we have, 20-something states, I think it's about 25. How many states do we have? Okay, so we have 26 loyal states. Well, if there's exactly 2,000 troops in each one of those states, we have a manpower pool of 52,000. But we can't recruit any 3,000 man brigades out of that, because no individual state has 3,000 men. We can't even recruit a full-size 2,500 man cavalry brigade. So you get the idea. And so sometimes, I haven't done this so far, but sometimes you wind up recruiting medium or even small-size brigades just to get the structure in place and form the units, the corps, and everything, with the idea that they will later grow to their full size. Which is another point worth making, that you recruit a brigade, and if you recruit at small size, it doesn't stay at small size. It will grow all the way to 3,000 men over time, assuming that they don't have too high attrition and don't take too many combat losses. But all the units will eventually grow to large size, or try to. Okay, so what exactly have we done? Well, the first thing I did was took the existing, most of the existing armies. We'll just go through them here. So this was the main army, and did some shuffling of units around. I think everything I transferred between armies has already arrived. So the gray units are those which have been recruited new. And we're getting sort of somewhat close to the organization that I decided I'm going to try, that I talked about in the last episode. So we have the 3 divisions. One division of 3 brigades, and the other 2 have 2 brigades apiece. This right here, this is a replacement brigade. As soon as this brigade arrives, I'm going to combine it with this brigade. Specifically recruited an Ohio small brigade for that reason, so I could combine these. So, and there's a couple of other cases like that in the other armies. This will eventually be a 2-brigade division right here. And we've got the 6 batteries, battalions, all in one artillery division. And the 2 cavalry brigades organized into 2 separate cavalry divisions so that they can operate independently on different sides of the map away from each other. That's why I did it that way, as I discussed, I think, last episode. And then a couple things I did here. I've got those Second Corps Corps and Division commanders in the thumbnail for this series, and I went ahead and made a division of these guys. So I've got the 2nd Division here under Hancock, and then the brigades are commanded by John Gibbon, Francis Barlow, and David Birney. And they're at this level for now. Get them some experience, build their stats up a little bit, and then at some point later in the campaign, I hope, assuming they don't get killed or wounded or what have you, and do indeed improve their stats, I do hope to eventually have a corps commanded by Hancock with these 3 guys as his division commanders. Which they need some seasoning. Hancock's fine. I mean, I could put him in corps command now, and Gibbon I think is fine too. He's actually an artillery guy, but yeah, Barlow and Birney need a little bit more experience, and I think they'll get that quickest in brigade command rather than in division. The other thing I did was, now that I've actually been able to create some cavalry, I just couldn't resist recruiting a Michigan cavalry unit named the Wolverines under the command of George Custer. Had to do it. And I gave them the best weapons too, Sharps carbines. Or the best available weapons I have now. Which should pretty much remain Sharps carbines for quite a while. Later on, cavalry will actually have available Spencer and Henry repeating rifles. But I think that doesn't come until at least Industrialization 2, maybe Industrialization 3. I don't quite remember. So this is what the Potomac Army looks like. And then similarly, kind of have the Shenandoah Army under Hooker slowly taking shape in the same way. Same thing here. This is just a replacement brigade that will fold into Hamilton's brigade, Pennsylvania troops. Had to do a lot of combining in here. This army, which at campaign start is called the Department of Pennsylvania under Patterson, that force at the beginning is almost all Pennsylvania brigades on the short contracts, and they all, most of them went home already. So I wound up combining 3 or 4 of those brigades together in order to come up with even somewhat okay size brigades here. Got a few more troops for the army out in Missouri. I'm not building him as big yet as the others, but I wanted him to at least have enough forces where he could fight the Missouri State Guard or the Army of the West, or the Confederate side it's called the Western Army, if they decide to come up to St. Louis. So this force will remain a little bit smaller for now. At least while he's focused solely on defending St. Louis. But I think with this force, he should be able to handle those guys, especially if he gets in a defensive situation. And then McClellan's army near Western Virginia, the Appalachian Army, same sort of thing, building toward that 7 brigade structure. He's got a lot of artillery coming and a couple of cav brigades. And then finally, do have a new army being recruited now. It's the Army of the Ohio. It's actually located right now in Louisville under the command of Grant. And I tried to give him some okay division commanders. Got John Reynolds here. He's not a cav guy, but I've got him in charge of some cav. Orlando Wilcox is here. Patterson got booted out of the command of that Shenandoah army, but he's not a terrible general, so I gave him a division command here. He's got a little bit of fame. That'll make some troops happy. And there are no weapons at all. You know, this is all mixed musket, 6-pounder artillery, and none of them have arrived yet. And it's still going to be several weeks before they've all arrived, too. Some are getting a little closer. But this army is slowly coming together at Louisville. And then I start, and because they didn't take too many troops, I've already started forming some of those little engineering corps. We have the 1st Engineering Corps and the 2nd Engineering Corps. The 1st Engineering Corps is forming up in Massachusetts, simply because I had a lot of recruits available up here. So I figured it would take a shorter time for him to get his troops in mass. And then the other is here in Ohio. And that is basically what has happened since the end of the last episode. As I said, not much movement going on. We did see the Army of the Shenandoah, Confederate Army of the Shenandoah, moving in this area. Our little squadron caught sight of him as he moved past Charlottesville. So we don't have him spotted now. He was moving north. But it's been long enough where if he was coming straight up to attack, I think we would have seen him already. So I don't quite know what he's doing. He may just kind of be sitting here in this area. And with that, I'm going to cut back out, and I will cut back in whenever something notable that I think is worth talking about occurs. Okay, we've got maybe a little bit of a situation developing here. Got some movement in a couple places by Johnny Reb. Over here in Western Virginia, we've caught sight of the Army of the Northwest, who has moved north from this supply depot that he just built toward Grafton. I think caught sight by our river squadron here. Estimated to have about 8,000 men. So we've got McClellan, and he's at yellow readiness and has got most of his troops in. He's got about 16,000 men now. So we may have to go chase the Army of the Northwest away if he wants to come up here and capture Grafton and Wheeling again. Here we go. So I'm going to move him up the river to this little West Virginia town across from Marietta, Ohio. I think in an earlier episode I said Marietta, Georgia, referring to this city. Obviously it's Marietta, Ohio. There is a Marietta, Georgia, which is why I said that. For now, I'm going to just move him here. Make sure he's got river transport enabled. But that's not too worrisome a situation. If the Army of the Northwest, under who, I have no idea who's commanding that, if they want to fight our 16,000 men with their 8 or 10 or whatever, I'm happy with that. Things are a little bit more serious over in Virginia. First, kind of a snapshot of where we are for troop levels. Right around 90,000 apiece. The Confederacy overall actually has a few more because they were a little bit ahead on researching the militia policies. They kind of got a jump on us in recruiting for a while. And at one point, while I was off camera, they had actually jumped out to about 30,000 more troops than we had. At campaign start, we had something like 70,000 or so. And of course, we lost a bunch of them when the 3-month contracts ran out. The Confederacy started the game with about 50,000, all or most of which, I think, if I remember correctly, were already one-year volunteers. So they didn't have that fielded manpower drop that we did. And then they got ahead of us on the recruiting on the militia policies. And so, anyway, now that we have recruited the 24-month, researched the 24-month policy and recruited some more units, which are now arriving, we've caught back up. Of the Confederacy's 90,000 men, however, about 2/3 of that are in their 2 Virginia armies, about 30,000-ish apiece. Army of the Potomac estimated to be 29,000, and that can be a little bit off. And the Army of the Shenandoah, last seen kind of in this area over here, was shown to have about 32,000 men. So between the two, they've got 60,000 men in Virginia, Eastern Virginia. We're not talking about this piece over here. Yeah, give or take a few thousand. One little tidbit that I went for quite a while and wasn't aware of, so others may not be aware of it, is cautious commanders tend to overestimate enemy troop sizes. This Riverine Squadron commander here is DuPont. He is not cautious. He's active. This is the unit which cited the Army of the Shenandoah here around Charlottesville. So that would suggest that that was a fairly, at very least, it wasn't an inflated count. It may still be inaccurate just because our intel, it can still be inaccurate. But that inaccuracy in this case should not have been biased toward inflation. It could have been a little low, it could have been a little high. Army of the Potomac, however, has come into view, and I think we can assume that it is either Hooker or one of these fort commanders, probably this one, by the way, Hooker completed building these forts, and I've put political generals and a little garrison in each of them. And just about to finish this fort over here. But both of these fort commanders and Hooker are cautious, so This number, the estimate of 29,000, if it is inaccurate, is more likely to be a little high than it is a little low, for whatever that's worth. Even if these numbers on these armies are a little high, they are a little bit higher. They would still be a little bit higher than what we have. The Potomac Army is up to about 20,000 present. I think he's waiting on a cav brigade. And Hooker's army is at slightly under 22,000. I think he's waiting on a brigade's worth of replacement soldiers. So even if they're kind of inflating the numbers, these two Confederate armies are a little bit higher than our own. As long as it's a one army on one army situation, though, it's close enough where a battle is fine. If they are able to combine these two armies, however, on one of ours, that could get a little problematic, because that would be over 2-to-1 in troop count. Now, the Potomac Army, which has everybody except Custer, whose arrival is imminent. So, yeah, even if a battle happens very soon, he'll have Custer by then. Among these infantry brigades, though, we've got our 7-brigade structure, but unlike any of the other armies right now, there's pretty good firepower here. All of the rifled artillery, which consists of, I think we have some 20 and 10-pound Parrots. So we do have 3 battalions of rifled artillery. They're not full size, but we do have rifled artillery here, and both of these 2-brigade divisions, Tyler's and Kearney's, have good weapons. Tyler's division are the red-coated Hall's rifle guys, so this division has a high rate of fire. And Kearney's division have green-coat Mississippi rifle brigades. Both of them New Jersey, so I've named them the New Jersey Rifles. And so this division doesn't have a high rate of fire, but it has long range and very high accuracy on their weapons. And I was also able to, for a little while, I had Springfield muskets for Hancock's division. But our factories have come up with enough Springfield regular standard rifle muskets for them. So this is an all-rifle division, and 4 out of the 7 brigades have better than average rifles. So as long as I can maneuver this force into a decent defensive situation, I think this force can take on... I'm comfortable with taking up to 2-to-1 odds with this corps. Well, it's still this army. Not quite to that point yet with Hooker's force. Still have Springfield muskets for his big division. Do have rifles on the flanks, including 1 brigade of redcoats. I brought Sherman's Hall Rifle Brigade over to the Shenandoah Army. So if the Army of the Potomac comes up here, we should be engaging in a siege, because we have this fort in front of us now. And that's fine for the moment. We'll let McDowell finish this fort, and then he can come over here and join the siege, and then I can flip that into a field battle using the assault mechanic. There is the unknown of the army of the Shenandoah, somewhere down here, which may be coming up to get in this little party as well. So we might wind up with a pretty big battle. But I do not want to retreat from this line. I don't want to give Winchester back up. I don't want to leave these forts that I just built to the tender mercies of whoever's of Beauregard and Joe Johnston, if they're still commanding these armies. So I think a battle is about to occur. Let's advance time and find out. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to mention. Oh, yeah, also while I was off camera, there were a couple more little naval battles where we beat off some paltry Confederate fleet and captured a few more little rebel ships. One of which was a cotton-clad ram, not just a fourth-rate steamer or schooner. So we actually got one semi-decent river warship out of that. Okay. Let's get time rolling. Army of the Northwest is headed toward Grafton. Beauregard continues coming up the railroad, down the railroad. I mean, the river, Shenandoah River, flows north, so down here is up. Down here, or I say down at the bottom of the screen is actually up the valley. And here, where it joins the Potomac, is down the valley. Okay, Army of the Northwest is here. However, he is not yet capturing Grafton, which means he might be in raid mode. I think I'm going to come over here with McClellan and chase him away. How's your readiness doing? He's doing fine, 100% supply. Okay, so we have a siege situation here, and that's fine for the moment. We have completed this fort. It's actually showing us with a little bit of an advantage. Beauregard's got 24,000 infantry, 2,300 cav. My understanding is that this could still be off, but it is pretty discrete numbers, so I'm going to think this is probably a little more accurate than what we saw earlier. So 24,000, 26, 27, maybe more like 27,000 men. For some reason, our side is not including our fort garrison. But we have more artillery, because all of our arty brigades have shown up. So because of our artillery advantage, maybe it will be better to just let the siege continue. I think I'm liking that idea. Meanwhile, let me get a commander in here. Fort Featherston. Oh, okay, I think the reason, yeah, the garrison that I recruited for Charlisle hasn't arrived yet. That's why it wasn't showing. It doesn't show the little 50-man garrison that is there by default. Okay, Fort Featherston. So this is the default. I don't think these fort commanders that the game generates, I don't think they're historical people. Some of the campaign start fort commanders are. But if you build a fort, I don't think it puts like a real officer or historical. I think it just auto generates a volunteer, and usually they're terrible. I mean, look, this is the kind of thing you get. So even though one can kind of use forts to find places for not very good political generals, they're still usually better than the volunteer schlub that the game gives you for the fort. So it's still an improvement, even though you're trying to squirrel away not very good officers. I think Captain Taylor looks like a fine candidate. Connecticut, though. Let's try to find a state. Pennsylvania. Yeah, I like that idea. We'll go with Franklin. And then we'll give him a little bit of infantry and... Okay. Guy's actually not too terrible. Especially for a fort garrison. That's fine. Okay. So now we've got a little bit of a roadblock here. Fort Featherston will not hold off a sizable army for a long time. But if the army of the Shenandoah were to come up this route toward Washington, he's at least going to have to stop and deal with Fort Featherston first, which will buy a little bit of time. So now that that's in place, I can bring McDowell over the Blue Ridge to join this siege and send Beauregard packing. I think that's a fine idea. It's probably going to have to actually cross the river to be counted as participating in the siege. Yeah, use the railroad to get over. That's fine. Oh, let's get time rolling. Ooh, now they've... Okay, see, they're still ahead of us on the militia policy research. He's probably going to jump out again in recruiting. So I need to keep up. I was going to go for the military 2 policy once we get the diplomacy done, but I think I need to go for militia 3 myself. Okay. So now we should have a pretty big advantage here, as long as Joe Johnston doesn't come up with the Army of the Shenandoah and also join the siege. If he does... Okay, so we got a little battle here. We've got about 16,000 men and a lot of guns for McClellan. And we've got about 10,000 men here under, I think this is Robert Garnett. Okay, we're going to fight a little battle here in West Virginia. And I'm going to hop into the map and deploy and all that. And I'll be back for the Battle of... whatever. It won't be Grafton. It'll be whatever this little town. Battle of Clarksburg. All right. Right, so here we are at the Battle of Clarksburg in West Virginia. We've got the game that gave us a meeting situation, but gave Johnny Reb the objective up here at a place called, I guess, the Adcock Farm or the Adcock House. Nope, String Creek over here. And started us over here on the western edge of the map. So basically we have an attacking situation. McClellan's infantry and artillery marching along the road. We sent out the cav ahead, scouting, found the Confederate force in the vicinity of the village of Willow Garden, apparently, which is not right where the objective is. And they have prepared a defensive position. They've put up some breastworks. They have a fence line. Well, that seems kind of superfluous. Can't take cover in both of those at the same time. We have a much larger force, but I don't really want to attack into a defended position like that. I think we'd win, but we might take more casualties than we really prefer. And I think there is room here to just cross and, come up this far, leave the road, cross over. I think we might take a little bit of artillery fire. He does have a couple of battalions. But we'd be well outside of infantry range. We might just be able to cross right in front of him, just right along in here, and go take the objective. Leave a blocking force here, kind of in this area. What's the terrain look like? Maybe just throw our own line of breastworks kind of across this area. Take the objective, and that puts the onus on him to attack me instead. It'll take a little time to do that, but I think that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so here we are. It's the morning of the second day, and I was indeed able to kind of slip in front of the rebel position, kind of a little bit of a hill here and some trees, so it took a little while. Was able to capture the objective, and initially just kind of set up down here yesterday, and there's a little fence line facing in this direction. The Confederates didn't care. They didn't move. So we got to nightfall, and this is the deployment zone they gave us. So what I decided to do was come up here and set all my guns up. We got 6 battalions of guns here, all lined up close together. And within range of the edge of the rebel entrenchment. And set up the center division here. Had just enough engineering points for a little bit of breastworks. This is it, though. I zeroed out with this. And then I've got the smaller flanking divisions on either end, and dismounted cavalry on each flank. So the idea is, as soon as I hit play, if the rebels are still here, these are their positions as we last saw them at nightfall. They very well might have moved and turned to faces with a new line. That's not only possible, that is probable, I think. But sometimes they don't move. Maybe they'll be right there when we start. If they're there, they're about to get a pretty big bombardment. Now these are only the 6-pounder field guns, the default guns. I don't have very much better artillery, and what little I have, didn't come to the Appalachian Army. So 6-pounders, but there's 95 of them. So they're not going to like that. Okay, as they get their halting orders, they're opening up. Okay, but they're off bombardment now. The closest target is artillery. I'm going to give them a counter battery. Because why not? That's what they'd be shooting at anyway. Well, this guy's unstable. 28%. And again, capped by fighting spirit. Now, some of that's because in Western Virginia we're in Confederate territory. And some of that's maybe because of first combat. But both of those factors apply to the entire army. It's not affecting any of the infantry. Or most of the other party. I don't know what state he's from, though. Okay, breastworks are working here. So far, Confederates aren't goaded into attacking us. I think that will change at some point. I think. I'm seeing bursts here. But I'm not seeing that he is actually under artillery. Well, he's taking some losses. Let's go ahead and lay these skirms down. It's not like they're shooting at anything anyway. And we'll lay these skirms down as well. And I'll lay down. Whatever. I don't think Howard is actually working on these breastworks. Here. Get to it. Maybe because I drew him across his position, I guess. No, I'm just going to pull these guys back. I'm just going to put him here in a position off the flank. Some losses for 6 battalions firing on him. I would have hoped he'd be getting wrecked a little faster. He is in cover. I wonder if that once that guy is taken care of, which may take a while. Let's see if this other battalion is in range. Not quite. Okay, this battalion is wavering now. That's good. It's taking significant personnel casualties, but it doesn't appear to be losing guns very quickly. Still got 15. And that 15 is either what he actually started with. Oh, now he's lost some guns. Here. Take that, Johnny Reb. Hood's battalion. They got John Bell Hood commanding artillery. And just like the numbers on the campaign map, these numbers of strength, casualties, number of guns, those are estimates. Those can be a little off. And that's why they're always round numbers, you know, multiples of 0 or 5. They're not exact in this tooltip either. Actually got 3 battalions. Estimated 10 guns here and 10 guns here. 15 guns here. Hood's not very happy, and he's feuding with his boss now too. We got a whole nother day after this. I'm happy just to wear them down today. If they don't want to attack. What's going on here? It's showing an infantry... Okay, so that looks like... So infantry brigade, however, he's got a detachment that is apparently manning some guns. I guess. I don't know what guns they're manning because this artillery unit has not fully routed yet. Okay. Now they're routing. Low cohesion. So, let us... So our grand battery, as it is, of 6-pound guns. They're shifting fire, I guess, because even though they're in counter battery mode. Which I presume means fire at artillery if in range, and if there's not any, I guess they just fire at whatever is in range. So I don't need to change the order. That's a pretty big brigade. With all that arty fire, maybe we can just make him break even if we don't inflict that many casualties. Apparently, We only see the detachment now. I don't think the brigade moved. I just think we don't have spot vision on it right now. Which seems odd, given how... I mean, our skirms are... should be seeing them. Our skirms aren't that far away. Maybe because they're laying down. That I know that affects rate of fire for sure. It may affect vision and range as well. Which they're musket armed, so they're not... Ah, see, okay, we got some movement now. Now, is he just coming to assume a defensive position, or do we actually have an advance coming? Let's switch to bombardment. This area right here. Go. Yeah, McClellan's out. That order should come pretty quickly. So it looks like Duval is done with his breastwork. When they get done, though, I mean, they get the cover bonus, but they're always in a little weird position. So let me see if I can get him to kind of line up in there. Can't tweak him very good. It just makes him want to rotate. Here, just... there we go. Oh, we've actually taken more casualties than he has. Not entirely sure where. Oh, okay. Yeah. It's because we're in the second day. We've taken 30 combat casualties, but we've lost 300 men overnight. Because attrition, you know, the daily attrition on sick and deserted, and that keeps running during tactical battles, so... That's where those losses came from. And he's lost about 100 men from that. His morale is coming down. Still a little bit higher than ours, but not quite where it was earlier, which I didn't show, I know. Okay, now we don't have vision on that infantry brigade either. I'm gonna have these guys stand up just to see if they can see a little further. Don't really want to advance them because they have short, they won't be able to engage. Okay, well we can see Drayton again now. He's taken 70 casualties from the bombardment. Which isn't enormous, but is not bad for 6-pound artillery. And so there's Drayton, full-size brigade in the breastwork, and McCulloch along the creek, who's taken some casualties as well. Okay. Let's lay back down. And hopefully he keeps those guys in vision. Nope. See, he lost the vision when he laid down. How's our ammo doing, Mr. Curtis? He's still over 80% ammo. We can bang away with the 6-pounders for quite a while. This should speed things up. And I'm just going to let this artillery bombardment continue on these 2 units until the arty is down to maybe 60, 50% ammo, and that may take most of the day. Let's slow this down a little bit, kind of reevaluate where we are. Okay, so we're about even. Actually, we're doing more casualties because most of that 379 is still so we're estimating, so here's his attrition number, so we're estimating we've done about 300 casualties with the bombardment. And we've taken about 75 battle casualties. So we are kind of slowly having the better of this artillery. It's not exactly an artillery deal. I guess it kind of is. The question is whether or not we're going to be able to make one or both of these brigades route from it. And I don't really know a way to tell. Can we get a sense of that from the returns? Not really. You don't get a number. You just get a bracket. Okay, none of these guys are under fire. We need to find it's Drayton and McCulloch. Still showing them as confident morale. But I don't know if that's last known, what they started the battle with, if this updates. It is showing them all as low supply. That's interesting. Well, we've blown half of our artillery ammo, and this is what we've gotten from it. So it doesn't seem like we're going to get more than that from the other half of our artillery ammo. And the units that we're firing at are in cover, either creek or breastwork. And none of this has instigated the Confederates to make an attack. Basically, I'm just trying to fix it so that whatever he does, I wind up flanking him one way or the other. And I don't really want to wait till tomorrow to do that. So, for this approach, though, let's kind of come about like this. And because I haven't moved those skirmishers, and they still have that little linky looking thing there, they should move in front of their parent brigades. I think that's how that works. And let's also mount up the cav, and he'll participate in that little movement as well. And we'll continue the bombardment while that is happening. And move McClellan kind of this direction a little bit, since there's forces over here moving. Shorten the order delay. Well, whatever else, this detachment is tired. Estimated McCulloch has taken 150 casualties now from our bombardment. Oh, this whole time, only one battalion has actually been bombarding. I had a battalion selected when I gave that order, not the commander. Oops. Alright. So I thought I was bombarding with all 6. I wasn't. Which is probably why yeah. The non-bombarding battalions actually went lower. 52%. I don't know if I'm going to do it very long. I want to see if it makes a difference. Well, shit. So somebody still has a bombardment order somewhere. Firing. 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 Apparently there's an order going to this guy, and I don't know what it is. There's an order going to all of them. Okay, so we have the bomb, or do we? Okay, Apparently I don't have to reset the target each time, since I initially gave it to the artillery commander. Seems like the losses, a total of 85 losses. Okay. Come on, William, stay up with your Cav brigade here. These guys at least have Smith carbines, unlike the other Cav brigade. Okay, we have Wheeler's brigade visible now. And it's not very big. Okay, looks like he sees us coming and wants no part of it, so that's fine. An HQ unit. One of the multiple Confederate Joneses. $500 to 3, almost 400. Even with the little guns, I kind of thought I'd get a little bit more out of the artillery than that. I think what I am going to do, though, is I'm going to move the artillery up a little bit, so that he can also range these folks further away. Let's just limber everybody up. Kind of move them kind of in this area. And they're kind of bugging out from this area, except for Hood's few guys there. Let's go ahead and move McClernand up to the creek. Let's get Cav over here. Put him across the creek on the road. All right, let's reorient the not so grand battery. Kind of like this. Is that all right? No, maybe a little bit closer than that. Okay, looks like we've got, and the Cav is coming too. I think they're about to finally do something. He's dismounting. Okay. This skirm's in kind of a no-win situation there. See if I can get them to fall back a little bit. They may not. Yeah. If they're not moving, I'm just going to pull them back entirely. How are these guys doing on fatigue and cohesion? Good and okay. Good and well rested. Let's push McClernand across the creek. Hood is routed. Okay, let's unlimber the artillery. And maybe from this angle, maybe they'll do a little bit better job on McCulloch's brigade. Maybe. Okay, we have a small brigade here. Iverson, he's in the fence line though. Okay, McClernand's got the order now. They'll start moving. So once we have Iverson fixed, what we can do is let's dismount Carr again. And once we've got McClernand in position, kind of facing into this, then we can bring Carr in for a flank attack with his faster firing carbines. Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah, let's just get all the artillery firing, flanking artillery fire into this position. That looks good. McClernand's brigade slowly coming across. The stronger Confederate brigades are still on this side. The little ones are here. So let's get McClernand kind of and the Cav to dislodge them. Should take a little time. We're moving across a creek and through the woods. Oh, Drayton has moved over here. So he's not in. This is just a detachment in this breastwork now. These are rifle arm brigades. Who, for some reason, well, he can't put out skirms because he's really small. he's not big enough to put out pickets. Let's get him on long range. Get him to put out some pickets. I don't want to move this cav in yet. He'll be kind of unsupported if he does. Garnett's brigade here. Small. Less than 600. Only 700 casualties, but that is almost 7% of his force. Okay, these guys are pretty well engaged now. I don't think Schleich needs his skirms out anymore. Pull those in. Okay, let's advance Schleich a little bit here. Maybe about like that. Oh, well, there's Drayton. He didn't last very long from all the artillery fire. Okay, let's start moving the cav in. I don't want him, that'll do, I think. He won't quite be in range there yet, but that'll orient him to move right in at a 90-degree angle. Well, Drayton's coming back. He's not quite done. I'm just going to pull Rosecrans skirmishers in as well. I don't think they're doing much good where they are. They're just blocking their own brigade's line of sight. Yeah, Rosecrans says reboard muskets. If this cav brigade wasn't wavering, I'd be tempted to kind of send him back over this way. Who is this? Oh, that's Hood. Okay. As it is, though, he might get up over here. And it wouldn't take very much. Just one canister pop and they'd break. guys engaged? Not quite. Well, if I had them firing on the cav, they would be then taking flanking fire from these guys. That's no good. I don't see much point. They're just having a skirm versus skirm exchange here. Okay, now, well, I mean, this Garnet's brigade is kind of flanking now. Let's go ahead and move Garnet in, right in, because it's a small brigade. This would be a bad idea with against a decent-sized brigade, but at 500 men, I think the cav can just move in on them, dismounted. Sort of, if they, I mean, with whatever weird maneuvering they're doing. Okay, let's go ahead and get McClernand's guys advancing right up onto advance here. Oh, I think that breastwork is facing the other way. That's why they don't want to pop into it. Well, they decided they need to go around the fence, so they're backing out. Luckily, no one appears to be shooting at them. Car. WTF, bro. Let's speed this up a little bit. Okay, I think they are about to go into the retreating before the retreat phase. So, let's get everybody advancing. Even you, Prentice. If you break, you just suck. I think that's too far away from the charge. And just advance to there. Let's move McClellan up. About to there. Right. Says Schleich's brigade. It's Gordon. He's up in cover now. Alright, car, shoot somebody. Shoot these guys. Don't want the Cav too isolated there. That's why I'm advancing Gordon up near him. Rosecrans a little bit tired right now, so we'll give him a second to... Still shooting, but at least he's standing still for the moment. That's an actual brigade? Well, we're advancing everybody. That's fine. Okay, we're at 18% casualties. Okay. All right, we got 46 minutes. Try to push it over to the major. Alright, Prentice, come do something productive. Okay, we got everybody routed in the center. We've crossed the threshold for major victory. Alright, about 500. We did lose a few guns from counter battery, 200 cav, 200, we actually lost more cav than we did infantry. Probably right there at the end. Garnett lost all his guns, and over 2,000 infantry, 2,700 overall. So that should get Garnett retreating back south, away from Grafton, which was the desired effect. Almost 1 point on national morale. It was a fairly small battle for forces engaged. That's why it's not quite 1 point, even though it was a major victory. Got almost a point up in military experience. Railroad. You know what? At campaign start, I forgot to look at the railroads. I think we probably have a couple that we can construct. Okay, victory at Clarksburg, army fleeing, support for... I do not see a headline for Prentice getting defamed. That's good. I guess. Maybe I wanted him defamed. Get him out of there. And it looks like we have... Yeah, oh, yeah, that's our siege battle over there, where we currently are ahead. Yeah, here in the railroads, I should have gotten these started earlier, but let's get this Iowa and Minnesota. Get those railroads building. I mean, they're way off in the western part of the map. We're not going to need them directly for transport of troops. But just having those railroads, I mean, all these railroads produce some trade revenue as well. Like this Connecticut one is kicking in almost $5 million in revenue. That's probably one of our biggest railroads, New York and Providence. This might be a little more typical. Delaware, it's a little over 600K. So even if we're not going to directly use these railroads that we're building, it's still worth building them. And even if we don't use that route, it will still further increase our railroad transport capacity. Anyway, so that probably turned into a pretty long episode, and especially for how small a battle it was. I probably could have done a lot more fast forwarding there in that thing. But if you're still here, I appreciate that. And thank you very much for watching.